thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. I know you have a lot of things to do. As I was saying, I'm not necessarily a Zoom expert, but I do have a pretty good working understanding of Zoom. And I wanted to share that with you. Why? Because we're members of BNI. And we get to, every now and then, have 5 minutes to showcase who we are in our businesses. And it really matters. Visibility matters. So having this work as best as you can, given your setup, is always important, right? Okay, great. So without further ado, let me just start with some basics about Zoom that we all want to have. Ta-da, that's MoonDog Web Hosting and Design. That's me. And again, thank you for being here. So this is what we're going to talk about, some basics for networkers. And the intention is to elevate your presentation skills. And this is my intended outcome. The outcome for today is that you will leave this session with a solid understanding of your options for presenting on Zoom based on your physical setup and your presentation media. We'll talk about the presentation media today a little bit also, okay? Now, as I was saying, some basics. Always make sure you have the latest version of Zoom. You may notice if you have a paid account, when you log into your Zoom homepage, underneath your pictures, there's an icon that allows you to check for updates.
Does that happen automatically if you have a paid account? Because it seems like mine updates itself every now and then.
It should. You can set it to auto update, or you can set it to only update when you prompt it. And the way Zoom works is if there is an update, it'll automatically ask you if you want to download it. And if you agree, it'll download it, but then you have to restart Zoom. So here we are back to the basics. Hope you can see that. And then now we were talking about the things you want to keep in mind. You always want to work on the latest version of Zoom if possible. And you want to encourage your audience to use the latest version of Zoom. There are some features of Zoom that I may be showing today that if you don't have the latest version, it won't work. And it's frustrating to you and to your people. So it's always good to let people know, hey, make sure you check your Zoom version before you log on. Okay, internet connection is very important. I would say if you have at least 7 megabit upload, you'll be okay. The more, the better, obviously. And you can always check your internet connection speed using speedtest.net. Just open that URL and hit go, and it'll give you your numbers, okay? I also want to note something, and I know this is kind of challenging for many, but wireless connections are a little bit of a challenge to do streaming video. The technology of wireless connections is that it buffers, and there's a latency, and sometimes that shows up as choppy voice or choppy video, okay? I didn't write this down, but I do suggest if you have no choice, there is a way for you to dial into a Zoom meeting with your phone just for the audio. Assuming your phone is on your cellular network, it's not going to take any of your bandwidth from your Wi-Fi. And that will help, actually. So another trick, by the way, if you have no choice and you're limited in bandwidth, and this is kind of a bummer, but you may need to turn your own video off while you're talking, your style, so that people only see the presentation and they can hear you, okay? Keep in mind, again, that what I'm creating with you is visibility is critical. And there are constraints, and there are things you can do to make it as professional as you can, basically, okay? And then lastly is practice. I practiced all yesterday. And this morning, it was like for nothing because I had to do it again, So you never know. Remember Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will. And what makes us, by the way, in case there's a breakdown, what is critical is not panicking. guess what? My slides are down. I'm just going to talk to you, right? Off we go. No problem, right? That would make you credible because, hey, no problem. You don't get fluttered by things that happen. Now, let's kind of get into the middle of this here. And I want you to know a couple of things. First of all, I have a PC. So what I'm going to show you is mainly from a PC point of view. I know some of you have Macs. And if somebody has a Mac and they know something about the Mac that's different, I invite you to chime in right away. Hey, on the Mac Edmundo, it's over here instead of over there, right? So that we can kind of get ourselves situated because it's a little different. And also I want to mention, I do not recommend ever presenting on a tablet or a phone. If you have to, I get it, right? But if you can set yourself up to win, don't do that. Okay. So let's look at the three major setups options that you could conceive. And I'm going to use your 5-minute presentation as a context for what we're going to create here. So one option is that you have 2 monitors and you're going to present full screen. There's an option that you have 1 monitor and you're on a separate window. You're going to share in a separate window. And then there's a third option that I'm going to call 1 monitor, but using the presenter view. So there's the setup. By the way, that's my setup right now. I have my keyboard right here, right as the picture shows. Here's my screen that has the PowerPoint presenter view and my Zoom view. Everything is here. And by the way, you can notice the camera. My camera is on this monitor, so when I'm talking to you, I'm doing my best to look at the camera. Can you tell the difference when I'm looking at you, which I'm actually looking at the camera, as opposed to when I'm looking at the tiles? My tiles are over here. You can tell I'm looking away. So one thing to do when you're presenting, when you start sharing, you'll lose people. Everybody will disappear for a minute from your view. And you'll see your Zoom controls, there should be a green bar and a red bar that says stop share. And when you hover over that, the menu pops up. You click on show videos, show other videos. So that what I now have is I have a little square right here with all of your faces right there. Okay, so I have my Zoom squares right in front of my face. And I'm going to have my PowerPoint presenter view on this side, and I'm going to share this with you in a moment. And then over here on this side, I have another screen, and my PowerPoint presentation is there full screen. This is a pro trick also, by the way. Notice there's another computer on this meeting with a hashtag. That's me. It's my confidence device. That way I can see exactly what you're seeing. And it's on my tablet right here in a little stand. You can use your phone for that, by the way. That's fine for that because it's just confidence monitor. Yep, they're looking at this slide. I'm looking at this slide. We're good. Okay, excellent. This is the PowerPoint presenter view. Are you familiar with this? I probably should back up a bit. So let me back up a bit. And then let me share my other screen. Okay, I'm just sharing my desktop. By the way, you should probably not share your desktop. You should pick a window to share. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I do want to share from PowerPoint. You may be familiar with this. You can set up your slideshow. So you select slideshow from the top menu, and then you set up slideshow. Here's these 3 choices I was mentioning. You can set up your show as presented by a speaker full screen, which is what I have selected right now. I have 2 screens, so I can choose which of the monitors will be where the full screen presentation will happen. And you notice that it's my monitor number 1, happens to be the one over here. And then in the checkbox down here says use presenter view. That is what I was showing you a moment ago. So if I went back to share, and now you can see the presenter view. I'm going to resize it, hopefully. move it over here. What I want you to notice, though, is that I have my Zoom, my PowerPoint presenter view off to the side, right? I would also have my show video panel right here. So my PowerPoint is over, my controller is over the side. I have the tiles of your faces right in front of me, in front of the camera. And as an example, I could have a third document. Let's just presume this folder is my script or my speech or my notes, right? I can have those also, okay? So ideally, if you have two screens, this is the perfect setup. Full screen on the screen away from you. The one that doesn't have the camera, perhaps, is the way to think about it. On the one that you have your camera, you want to have your Zoom controls, your slideshow presenter view, and whatever files you need to support you for the presentation. Okay? Also, it helps me looking at the camera more, right? It takes a lot of practice to always look at the camera, even if I got to read something. But if you're doing this, that's awkward, right? Isn't it? Like, hey, what's happening, right? I'm not talking to you. This is the nuance of Zoom. This doesn't happen in real life. And you can also, by the way, I told you about my security monitor, my confidence monitor, my iPad for me. You could also have other things there. You could have notes. You could have WhatsApp, for example. I do that when I'm presenting. I don't want to look at the Zoom chat, but if I'm going to get a communication from somebody, I usually have WhatsApp open on the side somewhere so I can see it when it pops up, okay? But we won't worry about that. This is your 5-minute feature presentation. We're not doing any of that, okay? That's the ideal setup if you had 2 monitors. And if you have 3 or 4 monitors, more power to you. You can even watch the ball game while you're presenting. Now, let's look at option 2, which is 1 monitor and using separate share window. Now, let's go take a look now at what that would look like. And I'm going to share PowerPoint again. And again, I'm going to go to set up my slideshow. And this time, I'm going to select, I hope you can see this window that popped up, browse by individual. You all see that? Great. And then notice that as soon as I do that, the option to multiple monitors goes away. And I also don't have a checkbox for presenter view. So let's take a look. What does that look like now? If I now go to slide share, and if I remember, I do it from here. I think it's from current. Yeah, look at that. Now, this is great because of several things. Let me change the share view now to the desktop. Hopefully, you can see that here's that PowerPoint presentation right here. Notice that I can move it around and make it bigger or smaller. And you should be able to see it no matter what I'm doing. Is that the fact? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Now, do notice, though, that if I put the mouse over it, you can see my mouse, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And notice that there's a band, probably a couple of black bands, and you see these controls down at the bottom, right?
Yes.
And you notice that when I shared full screen, you didn't see any of that.
Yep.
And it didn't matter if I put my mouse over there, you still didn't see that.
Yep.
So that's one trade-off of having to use the display in the window. You're going to have those bands. I suppose you could struggle for a while and figure out how to size it perfect so it doesn't do that, but good luck with that, okay? Now, in this setup, well, as the picture shows, I'm looking at my camera. I'm on my computer with the camera, and I have my presentation in its own window. In this example, I have it like it's up on the left side. And then I have my Zoom controls. I can see people's faces and stuff up here on the bottom, on the right side of my screen. And if I needed to, I could also have a script, like I say, my notes or something else on that screen. You wouldn't see any of that. You would only see the PowerPoint presentation, okay? So that's an effective way to do it if you only have one screen. The drawback again is you don't have the really beautiful full screen view of the presentation. You still have these controls that people can see. Cool. So not the end of the world, but again, in terms of hierarchy, 2-screen, full screen, awesome, right? This would be the next level. So now let's take a look at the next option, which is using a single monitor and using presenter view also. And this one is a little trickier, because here's what I'm going to do. For the moment, I'm going to pretend that I'm only having one screen, and I'm going to go back to PowerPoint and the slideshow, and I'm going to go back to the settings that I had a minute ago. So once again, I'm in the slideshow, setup slideshow. I'm going to do presenter by full speaker again, and using the presenter view again. Now, don't worry. Mine is going to be over there, and I want it over there just to make this easier for me to show you, but it would apply the same way, okay? So if I were to do that and I start the slideshow, so you should see my PowerPoint.
Yes.
Review.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And imagine that behind this is the full screen presentation, and I use the keyboard combination Alt and the Tab key, and on Mac I think it's Control Tab, to navigate to where I can get the presenter view back to the front. Okay. And I have my Zoom controls in front of me. So now I'm going to stop share just so that, so imagine that I did that setup already. I'm set up, I got my presenter view. And now what I'm going to do, share screen, and I'm going to go to the advanced settings. There's an option called share a portion of your screen. So what I'm going to do, this is kind of tricky, but it's a good alternative, which is I'm going to select the precise area of the screen that contains the actual slide in the presenter view. There's the basic tab, and then there's the advanced tab. If you go to the advanced tab, there's a option called portion of screen, and that's what I selected. So you're now seeing that portion of my screen. So when I click and it changes, you see that it changes for you also. You do see my mouse, but the controls are further down here at the bottom. So I don't need to have my mouse over the image at all. And the other benefit, let me actually change what I'm sharing. So maybe now you can see.
And this is mainly if you just have one screen, right?
Yes.
Two things, Doug, and I think you mentioned it. I only have one screen, right? And my notes are on PowerPoint. So I have to have PowerPoint to see my notes, right? My script is on PowerPoint, right? So this is the way that I would work around that. I would have the presenter view ready, and then I would share a portion of screen. Then you have to draw, a little green box shows up, and you got to draw it over precisely where you want it, which is what I had done a moment ago. Now, what that does is people only see this piece here in the middle, which is the slide, and you get to see the notes, and you see the next slide, just like if you were 2 screens. Now, I'm going to say this one out of all of them requires the most setup. But what you want to do is before the meeting starts, you want to have all of this set up. You want to practice share screen so you can size that green box exactly where you want it. Okay. That's very critical. That's one thing you want to set up ahead of time. The other thing that's really critical is that window, this window, the PowerPoint presenter view has to be in the front. If I'm sharing a portion of the screen, whatever is on that portion of the screen gets shared. So if you're presenting and you got your Facebook in the background and you accidentally on Facebook and it comes to the front, that's what people are going to see. Better, worse, I think it's more what actually works for you, depending on the setup that you have. Having said that, by the way, here's a little tip for you. When you are sharing and you want to have the tiles come up so that you can actually have everybody look like we see each other right now. What I do, I used to leave it big so I can see your face, But the problem with that is, let's just say right now it happens to be that Doug is down here at the bottom. Let's just say we started interacting. My tendency is going to be to look at him, except that that's not the camera. The camera is up here. So my suggestion is make it really small and throw everybody right there, right in front of your view. So it's just a little eye movement now. Sure, I can't see the details of Doug, but I don't need to. I just need to give Doug or my viewers the experience. I'm talking to them. I'm not talking to my computer. I'm not talking to my script, right? That takes some practice, and it takes some setting up yourself to win, which is, again, this is why I wanted to share these things with you. You always want to share the window of the application. Try not to share your whole desktop. It's trouble waiting to happen, and it doesn't look very professional, okay?
So how would I just share the browser then? I've never done that.
If you, let me actually allow people to share screen. So right now, Janine, if you click on share screen.
Okay, should I do that now?
Go ahead. We don't share it right now, but if you click on it, you'll see, right, that you have a option, and one of them should say Chrome, right? So that's the one you want to pick.
So I select that one.
Yes.
Interesting.
And that's specifically and only shares that window, that app.
That's the hot tip for me today.
Yeah. Well, here's another one.
Thank you for that. So like the browser.
I got a couple of more. How to share things other than PowerPoint or slides, if you would, because sometimes we do, don't we? Something you may or may not have known about Zoom, but here it is. You have an advanced tab, and in that advanced tab, you have the option to share. And again, I wanted to show PowerPoint as a background. I invite you to explore that option. It's awesome.
Wow.
What it does is you click on it. It says, tell me which PowerPoint file. You click on that, and it opens it for you. And it has it as your background. So you see yourself, you get your little face like the people in the news.
Oh, wow.
Actually adjust it. You can move it. And if you're clever, this can be really, really awesome. What does it work really good for? Let's just say I'm going to talk to you about statistics, right? And so let me show you this graph. Imagine that the graph pops up right next to me. Again, I can't show you, unfortunately, but there's nothing animation. You're just looking at it and I'm talking. Then next slide. Oh, here's this skincare product that I was mentioning. Here's it's a static image, but it's aiding your presentation. So not good for a lot of text, not good for a lot of animation, but for real straightforward, show something, and you'll be in this image. It's great. It works really great. Okay. We share video sometimes, and you may think, let me open the media player, and then I'm going to open Zoom, and I'm going to share the media player. And that's not bad. It's okay. But this is a much better feature, because what Zoom will do is it'll suck up your file and it'll stream it for you. And when you do that, it doesn't show your mouse. Again, this whole thing about it never shows your mouse when you're doing that style. But one thing to keep in mind. So notice the sequence. I open share. I click share video. It opens up the Windows dialog. Right? And I pick the file. I happen to pick, just as an example, is Deborah's from last week. Now, on your screen, what you'll see is the bottom with the video and the controls. No one else will see the controls. Here's one thing to keep in mind. You have to start it. You got to click play. That's just something to keep in mind. So I'm going to do it real fast here for you, real time. And I'm going to share. See the controls or anything.
Does it matter to select your screen and start sharing if you're muted or not? I thought I heard somebody like Tom say that you have to unmute yourself before you share your screen, or you can't select that afterwards?
No, that's not true. You don't have to.
Okay.
What happens though is that this happens to people when you share screen, your screen changes sometimes dramatically, and people get lost. They don't know where the controls are all of a sudden.
Okay.
And there's some Zoom settings that you can have the control always be present or the hide or that's some stuff you can manage. But again, Jane, thank you for the question. And again, I'm going to re-emphasize practice, practice, practice. Don't wait till the day of the presentation to try to figure all of this out. I'm going to say this. These are the things you want to make sure you do to win. If you can have the time, do this. Don't step over it. Practice. Zoom changes features all the time. PowerPoint changes features all the time.
I think that's very good advice. It's time well spent for sure.
Yeah. And there's nothing better, seriously, you know, as an audience, when somebody shows up and they say, okay, here we go. First slide, next slide, conversations, everything is walking along, moving along exactly as scripted. That's great visibility.
Yeah. You
struggle, I don't know what happened here. You know, people will become passionate, but you know, that dinged your visibility and your credibility. Sorry.
It makes people feel bad for you too, and in a way that makes them uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, exactly. So anyway, it is noon. Thank you so much for being here. I really hope this has been of value to you, and I hope I fulfilled the intention that you have enough skills now that you can elevate your next presentation.